Namaste. The 18,000 verse scripture, the Srimad Bhagavatam, was written down 5,000 years ago and is described as the cream of the Vedas. The Srimad Bhagavatam contains an abundance of timeless knowledge in the form of historical references, quotes, and stories which give clear indications and instructions on how we can actually be truly joyful in our loving relationship with our Supreme Friend and Lord, Sri Krishna. Included in the numerous narratives is one about a young boy named Ajamila. Although this took place a long time ago, it is very instructive for the contemporary worldwide problem of online pornography that reaches into the homes of millions and millions of people, affecting children, teenagers, and adults. Here is the powerful and engaging story of Ajamila. Long ago, in a city known as Kanyakubj, there lived a virtuous Brahmana family. Their young son was named Ajamila, and he was well behaved, truthful, and kind to everyone. One day he was asked by his father to go to the nearby forest and collect some wood and certain grass for the Brahminical fire sacrifices that were taking place in his parents' home. As Ajamila was coming back with those articles that he had collected, he came across a drunken man who was embracing a prostitute and publicly enjoying unrestrictedly, embracing and kissing her in a nearby ditch beside a road. Both the man and the woman, their eyes were rolling in their heads in mundane pleasure. As they were overwhelmed with lust and unaware of their surroundings, the prostitute's clothing became loose and parts of her body were being displayed. Remembering the instructions of the scriptures, Ajamila tried not to gaze at the woman. He tried to control lusty desires with the help of his knowledge and intellect, but he failed. He turned away and went home, but he could not forget what he had seen. For years he could not forget that prostitute. When he was older, he married a virtuous woman, but still he thought of that prostitute. His parents became elderly, and he was their only son. He completely neglected them. Instead, he sought out that prostitute and brought her into his home as a maid. Soon he gave up his very nice wife and sent her away so that he could marry the prostitute. After his parents died, he used all his inheritance to please the prostitute, but his wealth was soon spent. So, in order to support the prostitute, he began to gamble and steal. He became very degraded and engaged in all sinful activities to supply her unlimited desires for sense gratification. Over the years, he had 9 sons with her, and when he was 88 years old, he still could not give up having sex with her, and he had his 10th son, whom he named Narayan, which is a name of the Supreme Lord. Ajamila's young son was naturally very dear to both his mother and father. The child's broken language and awkward movements greatly endeared him to the old Ajamila, who always took care of him and enjoyed his activities. Thus, unintentionally, the old man was always chanting the holy name of the Lord. Although he was referring to his son and not Lord Narayan, Ajamila was becoming purified because the holy name of Narayan is very powerful. always taking care of his son and calling his name, Ajamil was not aware that his own life was now exhausted. As the time of death approached for the foolish Ajamil, he began thinking exclusively of his son Narayan. At the moment of death, Ajamil saw 3 persons with deformed bodily features, fierce and twisted faces, and hair standing up on their bodies. They were the Yamadutas, the servants of Yamaraj, the Lord of Death, and they had come to take Ajamil away to their master's abode. When Ajamil saw them, he became extremely bewildered, and because of his attachment to his child, who was playing a short distance away, he loudly and tearfully called the child's name, Narayan. Immediately, the Vishnu Dutas, the servants of Lord Vishnu, Narayan, arrived on the spot. They had heard the holy name of their master from the mouth of the dying Ajamil, who had chanted in complete anxiety. As the Vishnu Dutas arrived, the Yamadutas were snatching the soul from the body of the dying Ajamil. With resounding voices, the messengers of Lord Vishnu ordered them to stop, and thus saved Ajamil from death. Although the servants of Yamaraj have jurisdiction over all sinful living beings, the messengers of Vishnu are capable of punishing even Yamaraj himself if he wrongs a devotee of Vishnu, the Supreme Lord. When the Yamadutas were thus forbidden from carrying out their mission, they exclaimed, "Who are you, sirs, that you dare challenge the jurisdiction of Yamaraj? Whose servants are you? Where have you come from? And why are you forbidding us to touch Ajamil? Because of his sinful life, we must take him to the court of Yamaraj for punishment. According to the extent of his sinful acts, he will be punished and thus purified." The Vishnu Dutas replied, "Ajamil has already atoned not only for sins performed in one life, but for those performed in millions of lives. For in a helpless condition, he chanted the holy name of Narayan. Chanting the holy name of the Lord is the best process of atonement for a thief, for a drunkard, for one who betrays a friend or relative, for one who kills a Brahmin, for one who murders women, the king or his father, for one who slaughters cows, and for all other sinful men. Simply by chanting the holy name of the Lord, such sinful persons can attract his attention. Therefore, O servants of Yamaraj, do not try to take him to your master for punishment. One who chants the holy name is immediately freed from the reactions of unlimited sins, even if he chants indirectly to indicate something else, jokingly, for musical entertainment, or even neglectfully. This is accepted by all the learned scholars of the scriptures. Although one may neutralize the reactions of sinful life through austerity, charity, vows, and other such methods, these pious activities cannot uproot the material desires in one's heart. However, if one serves the personality of Godhead, he is immediately freed from all such contaminations. If a person, unaware of the effective potency of a certain medicine, takes that medicine, it will act even without his knowledge, because the medicine's potency does not depend on the patient's understanding. Similarly, even though one does not know the value of chanting the holy name of the Lord, if one chants knowingly or unknowingly, the chanting will be very effective. The Vishnudutas released Ajamil from the bondage of the Yamadutas and thus saved him from death. Ajamil, now free from fear, came to his senses and immediately offered respects to the Vishnudutas by bowing his head at their feet. He was extremely pleased by their presence, for they had saved him from the Yamadutas. When the Vishnudutas saw that Ajamil was attempting to say something, they suddenly disappeared. Having heard the discourse between the Yamadutas and the Vishnudutas, Ajamil could now understand the transcendental principles concerning the relationship between the living being and the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Furthermore, since Ajamil had heard their glorification of God, he could remember all his past sinful activities, which he greatly regretted having performed. "I am such a sinful person," he said. "Because I identified myself with my body, I was subjected to desires for sense gratification. That was my material bondage. Being a most fallen soul, I was victimized by illusions and was like a dancing dog led around by a woman's hand. Now I shall give up these lusty desires and free myself from these illusions. Because of a moment's association with devotees of the Supreme Lord, Ajamil was able to detach himself with determination from the material conception of life. Freed from all material attraction, he immediately started for the city of Hardwar on the Ganges River. In Hardwar, Ajamil stayed at a Vishnu temple where he executed bhakti yoga, the process of devotional service and the chanting of the holy names. When his intelligence and mind were fixed on the form of the Lord, Ajamil once again saw before him the 4 celestial messengers of Vishnu. Recognizing them as the ones he had seen previously, he offered his respects by bowing down before them. The Vishnudutas had gone away for some time to allow Ajamil to become firmly fixed in meditation on the Lord. Now that his devotion had matured, they returned to take him back to the spiritual world. Upon seeing the Vishnudutas, Ajamil gave up his material body and regained his original spiritual body, which was just suitable for an associate of the Lord. Accompanied by the Vishnudutas, Ajamil then boarded a golden airplane that took him through the airways directly to the abode of the Supreme Lord Vishnu. Although he had been destined to be carried away to hell by the Yamadutas, Ajamil was saved by the Vishnudutas and was able to go back home because he chanted the holy name of the Lord at the time of his death. Namaste.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.